Hi, everybody. I think we're live. I hope we're live. It says we're live. So welcome to Hope Talks. It's October, obviously, and we are back for Hope Talks. If this is your first time joining us, thank you. Welcome. If you have been with us before, still thank you. Thank you for coming back. Thank you for tuning in, and thank you for supporting us as we continue to do these live conversations. As always, please leave a comment. Let us know where you're joining us from. If you have any questions, if you have any comments, put that all down below. Our wonderful intern Alice is going to be monitoring the comments and responding to you as best she can, or letting me know if anything needs to be addressed here in this conversation. So I'm going to take some time to let people get settled and join. While we're waiting, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about our topic today, which is domestic violence, or more so domestic violence awareness. So we are going to be diving into that topic. I will introduce myself. For those of you who don't know me by now, I'm Catherine. I am the Development and Communications Coordinator for Southside Center of Hope. So I deal mostly, a good majority with social media, newsletters, things of that nature. Development also means that I assist with fundraising. So if you have been involved in any of those initiatives or follow us on social media, thank you so much. It really makes my job a lot easier, when we have a strong network of supporters. So I do appreciate you all being involved and keeping caught up on what we have going on. So a little bit about Southside Center of Hope. I also do like to share as we prepare for these Hope Talks, just for people who are new or joining, from word of mouth, from their friends' recommendations, whatever it may be, however you found yourself here. I do want to just take a moment to talk about our agency. Southside Center of Hope is a nonprofit recovery home in Chicago for single women and women with children who are experiencing homelessness and in recovery from addiction. So we provide a wide variety of supportive services. We also provide housing. And the really special thing about our program is that it's completely free, 100% charitable. We are, I believe, the only free recovery program for women in Chicago. So we are always really excited to share that because it sets us apart from some other agencies that operate under a similar mission as us. So, like I said, our topic this month is domestic violence awareness, which we have chosen because throughout the entire month of October, we recognize Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So you may have seen on social media, we've been posting some different resources and statistics and articles related to domestic violence awareness. And this topic is important to us as an agency because we know that our residents, oftentimes domestic violence is something that they have faced in the past. It could be, that past traumas is what has led them to their current circumstances, has led them to be homeless, has led them to seek drugs or alcohol as a form of self-medication. There's a myriad of things that could take place, and domestic violence kind of just is one piece of the puzzle, but it is something that we see overlap quite a bit. So we do like to take time to acknowledge that, and October is a great time to do that. So what else do I want to share with you? I want to remind you all, if you didn't catch me in the beginning, now I'll take time in the middle to remind you to leave comments. Let us know you're here, where you're joining from, how you became associated with this agency, any questions you might have regarding this topic, any questions you might have about our special guest and the agency that she works for. And share this post, because, you know, we want it to be viewed by as many people as possible. Not only is the information very important, but we also do want to, you know, not familiarize ourselves, but, you know, for other people to familiarize themselves with our agency. You never know when you're gonna come across someone who might need some of our services, or, you know, you never know who might be interested in getting involved in our mission. So we want to expand our network as much as possible, and we cannot do that without you. So please consider sharing this video as we are preparing to go live. So I will tell you a little bit about our guest, Gladys Carter. She is Program Director for Family Rescue Inc. Family Rescue Inc. is an agency in Chicago that provides supportive services to survivors of domestic violence and their children. In addition to that, Gladys is an Illinois certified domestic violence professional. She has worked with domestic violence survivors in a variety of roles over the last 10 years. And so we're going to be discussing with her why domestic violence is important, how we can support survivors, and, you know, the correlation between substance use, addiction, and domestic violence, which is something I touched on a little bit earlier, but she will be able to tell us a little bit more about that correlation. And then, of course, we'll also talk about how people can connect with the services that are provided by Family Rescue Inc. So, you know, we will be getting started pretty soon here. I did want to share, I guess, some statistics that I found in my research regarding domestic violence that I found to be a little shocking, more so just very telling of the importance of domestic violence awareness, and also the importance of connecting with partners, sharing information about resources that are available, because, you know, what I found was that in the United States, 1 in 4 women will experience domestic violence during their lifetime. So, you know, if you really think about that amongst a group of girlfriends, you know, 1 out of every 4 will have an experience with domestic violence. And so that's why it is so critical that we are talking about domestic violence and bringing awareness to domestic violence on the front end, to help women and, you know, all people be able to recognize those warning signs, be able to offer help when it's needed in those times of crises, and also, you know, to connect survivors with resources. You know, it's never too late to step away from a dangerous situation. And so we want to make sure that we are, you know, spreading that message far and wide. And I actually dug a little bit deeper, and, you know, that 1 in 4 number that was so, it is so moving to me, I guess. I found that in Illinois, actually, our statistics are a little bit more shocking, to where 37% of women in Illinois experience domestic violence in their lifetime. So that's even a little bit more increased. I mean, that would go even further to say 1 in 3 women in Illinois have had that experience or will have that experience. Again, so these are just some numbers that I found that I wanted to share with you all just to show, why this was important for us. So I guess, now it's about 1:10. So I'm going to say one more time, leave comments. Alice is at home monitoring the comments, so she will be able to respond to you accordingly. And share this video. Again, thank you for joining us today. And I am going to go ahead and try and bring in Gladys. So bear with me while I see what I can do. I think I'm getting better at this though. Hi, Gladys. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, and I can see you. Welcome.
Yes, I have the laptop.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
I'm glad to be here.
So I had already taken some time in the beginning to share a little bit about you and about Family Rescue Inc. And we will talk about Family Rescue Inc. later on. I kind of want to wrap up with that. So we'll come back around to that information. But I wanted to start with you on this conversation about domestic violence awareness, just by asking, very simply, why you think that it's important for us to build awareness around domestic violence. In your personal and professional experience, why is this conversation important to have?
So this conversation is very important to have because in, I guess, society today, and in previous history, domestic violence has kind of been normalized. Mm-hmm. And it's like one of those big household secrets. So it's like, it's not taken as seriously as breast cancer and all the other different issues that we're facing today. Mm-hmm. And if you look statistic wise, more domestic violence incidents are occurring, especially now in this COVID-19. It's like it's actually coming out because people are actually having to be sheltered at home with their abusers more so than ever now. So whereas incidents were like maybe not as much, they are really running rampant. But I think that the younger population, the youth, are experiencing it more so now. And they need to understand and be educated on it, because where there's mixed signals with, like I said, the normalizing of it. If you go in a household with it and you see that your parents may still be together, but they fight, this happens, or there may be instances where things are going on at school and like I'm gonna say, for instance, bullying or something like that, these things, and neighborhood violence. So it's different levels to it. And so once you get educated on it, you'll understand where does that fall in maybe your family or with you.
Yeah. And I like that you said that, there was different levels to it, because I did want to talk about that as well. I think a lot of people, and I don't want to say a lot of people because I don't want to make assumptions, but I do think that we see domestic violence portrayed in a really specific way through media, whether that be the news or even just, film, TV shows, things like that. Domestic violence, I think in a lot of minds is seen as just physical violence, physical abuse. And I personally don't believe that that's always the case. So I wanted to see if you had thoughts on that, if you could elaborate on some of the different ways that people can experience domestic violence, some of the different ways that that actually manifests in relationships.
So let's see. So you may be familiar with, the mental aspect of it. So there's mental, physical. There's financial abuse, sexual, human trafficking is part of domestic violence abuse. Then there's bullying. So there's gang issues with community violence. And there's also elder abuse. So when someone's being your caretaker and they can abuse you as well. So those are the different levels that domestic violence can stem from.
And can you just talk a little bit more about some of the, just actually, specifically the ones that I wanted you to speak on a little more in depth, I guess, would be, the mental abuse and the financial abuse. I think those two are very devastating ways to experience domestic violence that are, much more unseen and talked about, a lot less, or maybe even just belittled in some ways, like, seen as less devastating than physical abuse. And I think actually that's not true. So could you just share with us maybe kind of, some examples of how those two types of domestic violence can sometimes play out?
Okay, so as far as mental abuse, you can be in a situation, and just keeping in mind, everything is about control.
Yeah, that's
so
really.
If you are recognizing that you are under someone's control, so whereas they're controlling the way your decision making, they're controlling things. I want to expound on decision making. So you can't verbalize your feelings. You can't let's say make decisions as far as the household, your life decisions, things that pertain to you or for your children. You're suppressed. That can cause a lot of despair, depression, and hopelessness. So you feel hopeless in your situation, like you're not in control.
Yeah.
And so that's the mental part of it. And you wanted me to talk about
the financial.
So financial. So not being able to have money to do what you need to do. So say your abuser has controlled the bank accounts. They control everything. They dish out to you what you can and cannot have, spend, just another. Or even if you're working, they're taking your money. You can't make no financial decisions. You are left to work with whatever they hand you. Or it gets bigger than this because maybe you're not able to work. You're not allowed to work. So that's another financial support. You have to stay home with the kids or stay in the house. You're not able to go out and get a career or do anything for self-growth. Then there is you're just limited to just it's control. So you can,
Yeah, and I think it is really important to acknowledge that a lot of this does stem from a person's need to feel in control. Sure, there are probably, people who are violent for different reasons. But I think it is really important that you acknowledge that a lot of this is just, it really is about control. It's not about anything that you could do or say or, help them with to resolve some of this anger. It's a lot of controlling energy. So, we discussed all those different ways that domestic abuse can present itself in relationships. I wanted to spend some time talking about, maybe just why a woman wouldn't leave a situation or wouldn't speak up right away. In your work, in your experience, what are some barriers that you have seen present themselves as, reasons why women wouldn't leave a domestic violence situation?
So right off the bat with that, the shame of it, the fear of speaking out, what the repercussions might be. Then you have some people that are tied up in their religion. Their religion can pose like the saying of being submissive. Right. And then there's also just your cultural upbringing. So different cultures have different, this is how a wife is supposed to be, or this is how you're supposed to be in your family setting, and you have to be accordingly. But a lot of that plays a role. And the reason why people don't speak up right away. But the most that I've come across is just the shame and fear of losing financials, or the way of life, the way they were living, the uncomfortability of having to start over, to have that full responsibility, to take care of children, or to take care of self. It could pose, because not only is there always a significant other, but there's also family abuse. So it's like parents may be abusing children, or children may be abusing parents. Siblings could be abusing siblings. So it's a different, it takes a different realm according to a person's household.
Yeah. And so, the women that we serve at our facility through our agency, they're in recovery from addiction, and many of them have been homeless before coming to our facility. Also, many of them have co-occurring mental health diagnoses, and a lot of them have experienced domestic violence. So before I brought you on, I kind of had touched on how a lot of these things really overlap. And so I wanted to ask you, if you believe, or if you see there to be a correlation between domestic violence and substance use addiction. I know in our work, we see those things overlap. I'm curious, as a domestic violence service provider, if you also see those things overlap.
Yes, I do. We have found that individuals that we service have relayed that they would use substances to numb themselves, to forget what has happened to them in their past and their present. So it's like numbing up, to forget the abuse, to deal with the abuse. Some women have informed us that, getting high and knowing that the abuser was coming home would be the best way to be able to get through the beating, or just the mental abuse as well. and that that was a coping mechanism for them. So yes, also to forget. Women have talked about even the after effects of the abuse, as far as even if they've left the situation, not to want to remember. They continue to get high. So, and it all depends on the level of the abuse. It's like you come across molestations that generally, the majority that I've seen recently have had that in their background. So it stems from that. So just the coping mechanism of using substances to forget.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would agree with that. I think that we have a similar experience. You know, you really have to get to the root of those traumas before you can truly, you know, address the substance use and recover from it. You really have to heal from that. So the next thing that I wanted to talk about, I guess, was kind of, you know, we've gained an understanding of domestic violence, the way that it presents itself, some other, you know, issues that could arise from those experiences. So I want to be a little bit more proactive now and discuss, you know, how to identify these situations and you know, seek help. So I guess the first thing that I want to get into is just, you know, if you could share some warning signs, you know, and that could be warning signs in a relationship, you know, from your significant other, warning signs that they potentially, you know, could be a toxic person to have in your life, but also warning signs that we can look for amongst our friends and family who might be experiencing this and not saying anything. Just, you know, what do you see as kind of like early presenters of these behaviors?
So definitely I want to start out by saying, if you're looking for warning signs in an abuser, they start off very loving and overprotective. That's what it appears to be. So it's like, you know, they're trying to learn about you. They're trying to find your weakness, and then they thrive off of that. Then you start noticing they want to pick things for you, change your thought pattern, make it to what they want it to be. And as soon as you notice that kind of stuff, you know that there's some type of control happening. The calling, the stalking, where are you? What are you doing? And knowing that you're at work or wherever. But even if you're not, like if you notice that that's being done a lot, like, you know, timing you, wanted to tell you how to spend, not, you know, it's like things start to be taken from you, you know. And then as far as family members go, you will notice the isolation starts to happen if you notice your loved one is being isolated. Whereas you used to get a phone call, you used to see that person. So it is, I'm sorry, I'm having a crisis right now. Can you give me a minute?
Yeah, just put yourself on mute.
Okay, thank you. Give me a second.
Okay, so we're gonna let Gladys take this call and be understanding, because that really is the nature of the work. You have to be able to meet people where they are. We go through this quite a bit with our agency calls, you know, in the middle of the night. Things just happen. So hopefully everything is okay with them. But while we have this time, I will remind you all to please comment, share this video. Let us know in the comments if you have any questions about anything. I'm sure that Alice will be adding a link to the Family Rescue website. So yeah, looks like Gladys is coming back. Take yourself off mute.
Hi.
There you are. Perfect. I was just telling them, that's just the nature of the work. So
Fortunately, it wasn't that big of a crisis. We could handle it.
Okay, good.
Thank you. So we were talking about isolation, and so
yes, and just early warning signs. And I'm really am interested as well, how like as friends we can maybe like see a friend who might be in a relationship that they can't see yet these warning signs. I spend a lot, I have a really great group of friends, and we are kind of just always, sharing information with each other, but don't always take advice from each other. So that's just something that I wanted to talk about with you, with friends and family members. What can we look for, and kind of how do you go about being tactful in approaching those situations if you think they might be dangerous?
So first, there may be some bodily signs that you may notice. Okay. You may notice a black eye or a bruise, or like marks on the neck, bruising on the wrist. Then there could be some hidden bruises that you don't know nothing about. If you notice that they may be walking a little different, or you could like, is something wrong? You can tell if they're not as active as they used to be.
Yeah.
They're a person that was very outgoing and laughing, and all of a sudden they're quiet. They're not who they used to be. So you notice those changes. The best thing that I can say is you would like not pry, but just ask them what has changed. Like, you want to know what has changed in your life from the last time I saw you to now, and then see if they'll open up to you and say something. 9 times out of 10, depending on your rapport with that person, they may convey to you, well, I'm just, been a little into my relationship, or, then you just kind of like be like the counselor with them, kind of like, and be like, so what's going on in that relationship? So you just kind of like keep giving them open-ended questions to try to get information out.
And so with all that being said, if you do suspect that someone is struggling with domestic violence, is there a way that you could be a voice for them? I'm just curious, how can you support that person without, pushing them away or offending them? And how can you become an advocate for their safety and speak for them if they, maybe are not confident enough to seek help themselves?
So you would have to like first ask them. Now, you're talking about a person that had disclosed something to you, correct? Are you?
Yeah, I mean, I guess for the sake of an example, if you have had this conversation with your friend, what has changed, and you kind of come to this conclusion that that they're experiencing domestic violence, what can you do to help?
So the best thing you could do is just ask them. You got to just ask, what does safety look for you right now? How does that look? and then you build from there. So you have to just ask them, what does safety look to them? Do they feel that they're safe? You know, we at Family Rescue, we still work with individuals that are still living in the household with abusers, but we develop safety plans to assist them if that safety becomes jeopardized, like literally. So if a person is not ready to leave that situation, you develop safety within the household. How can you be safe in that house? What does that look like for you? So that's what I was saying.
And so one other thing that I wanted to talk about before we move on, because sometimes I get like very hyper focused on women, because we serve so many women here. But I do want to take a moment to talk about the fact that this is not exclusive to women. Domestic violence happens to all groups of people, which you touched on a little bit in the beginning. But I do want to give you an opportunity to share, you know, just from your experience, you know, how you've seen that men can also be victims, or maybe, you know, maybe we would be surprised how often men are victims of domestic violence. I'm just curious, you know, what information you have, you can share with us on that about, you know, affecting different groups of people and not just women. Okay,
so there has been a rise with same-sex partners. So in the LGBTQ community, there it's not taken as serious because male on male, excuse me, abuse is occurring, and women on women. It's just that when it comes down to trying to figure it out, they're like, well, who's the perpetrator? You know, but on the flip side of that, women also can be abusive in a heterosexual relationship with men. We service men, men that have been human trafficked. We service men with children, and, you know, single men that have experienced domestic violence as well. So domestic violence is across the board. It doesn't single out one sex. Is across the board. So yeah.
And so what do you think is, I know, and this might be your answer, we already talked about, you know, asking the question, what does safety look like to you? So that might be the answer to this question as well, but I want to ask it either way. You know, what do you think is the first step in ending a dangerous relationship and kind of starting that healing process? What do you see as like that kind of first hurdle that people need to get over to kind of start moving forward and rebuilding?
So seeking help to get somewhere safe, we have found first. So seeking safety first would be the first thing, and then begin working with a counselor that will provide you the knowledge and understanding about domestic violence and empathy and resources to assist with their healing processes. So it's being able to understand, be a listener, a good listener to the person, to listen for those cues with domestic violence, because when a person feels like they're hopeless, sometimes it can go a different way. It can go into suicidal attempts. And so we want to make sure that we provide those wraparound services for that client in every area. So you got safety, they need resources, they need to get the counseling that they need to understand about domestic violence, so that they can begin to heal and not repeat this over again, learning about healthy relationships. is very key to the healing process.
And so you said that, Family Rescue Inc. provides those kind of wraparound services. And that really was the next thing I wanted to ask you about, was just what kind of resources does Family Inc. or Family Rescue Inc. Offer for survivors of domestic violence, and how do we access those resources?
So Family Rescue, we provide, we have an emergency shelter. We have a transitional rapid rehousing housing program. There's legal assistance we have to get emergency orders of protection at the 555 Harrison Courthouse. At the Daly Center, we are located in police stations, the 3rd, 5th, and 7th District Police Station. We have outreach services that are located at the DFSS offices. The one located at 10 South Kedzie, the one at 820 North Wilson, and also the one in our Inglewood location over at 1140 West 79th Street. Mm-hmm. Our outreach services also extend at our main office, which is at 8811 South Stony Island, where you get group counseling, donations for food, clothing, and transportation assistance. So as far as our housing is concerned, though, you have to go through the coordinated entry system in order to be placed into a DV housing. And actually, that's for any type of housing. You have to go into a shelter.
Is that like how people will call 311? Is that right?
So now you can go through 311 and you can call the DV hotline as well, or the human trafficking hotline. But in order to be placed in housing, an assessor has to assess you. So you will go into like a DV shelter if you are discussing that you have DV. If not, then you probably go to an emergency shelter. So you have to fully disclose that information that you're a domestic violence victim so that you can be placed in the right entity. But all of the housing agencies are now, we have to go through the coordinated entry system for Chicago. Mm-hmm. And so you're going to get assessed, and then they will send your assessment to the appropriate housing entity for them to call you to house you. But you seek immediate shelters if you are experiencing domestic violence from like a safe place, Afnagar, Greenhouse, Metropolitan Family Services, Wings, and Neapolitan Lighthouse. Those are just to name a few that I know that we network with and work with. And so that would be a resource for you.
And so, you had said that you have kind of all these different different locations that you operate in, like police stations and DCFS offices and courthouses.
Wait a minute, DFSS. DFSS.
What is DFSS?
That's like the Department of Family Supportive Services.
And that's different from DCFS is Child and Family Services. Yeah. Right? Okay. Thank you. Okay. So, all of that to say that I'm just curious, is that I guess if somebody would, walk into one of those police stations and access your services that way, is that just for like emergency? Are those just emergency services, or is that like how you would connect with kind of that, ongoing supportive services that you all offer?
So if you're walking into a police station and you're saying that you're a victim of domestic violence, wherever you walk in, we treat that as an emergency.
Yeah. Okay.
And so you will be guided into the right be navigated to the right. Like if you go into a police station and you come across one of our advocates, they immediately assist you with getting placed. If not at our shelter, then at another domestic or emergency shelter to get you safe. And then that process goes on. If you want a emergency order of protection, then they start that process. You going into the DFSS office, they do the same thing. So they assist you with getting somewhere safe first. Then you have that ongoing relationship with that advocate, meaning you calling that advocate, the advocate is assisting you with other pieces to the puzzle so that you need.
And do you know, if you don't, it's okay, I can look it up and put it in the comments. But do you know the phone number for the domestic violence hotline?
That number is 1-877-863. I'm sorry, 1-877-863, 6338. That's the DV hotline, Chicago. The human traffic hotline is 1-888-373-7888. And then our shelter hotline is 1-800-360-6619.
Okay, great. So we kind of have already, answered. My final question for you was just, if a person is in need of help, how can they reach someone at Family Rescue Inc.? I know we've already listed all of these different ways, which is amazing that you all are available to be present in so many locations, because we talk about that a lot with our agency. It's important to meet people where they are. So it's easier for them to access our services instead of having to find us. We try to find them, or at least, as much as we can. But maybe that might be a little overwhelming for some people. So I want to ask you, maybe like with first steps, I don't know, this question is swirling around in my brain. Do you think like, if somebody is not in a situation where they need to flee, their home immediately, the best route for them to connect with you would be to call that 1-800 number? Or is there another avenue to connect with your supportive resources? Maybe if somebody's just kind of like in the beginning steps of assessing their relationship and trying to develop their safety plan.
So that would be our outreach services located at 8811 South Stony Island, and or our outreach services at the DFS offices.
Okay.
If you're going to stay, in that, excuse me, and would like to learn more about domestic violence, and you don't feel like you are at a high safety risk at this time, then you can get educated on and receive services to prepare possibly for that transition. So you can work with an advocate to assist you with preparing for the move. Because some individuals, like you say, they're not ready to leave at that moment, but they are thinking about leaving the situation. And so the more advocacy that they can get, and the more counseling that they receive, they may need that to make that move. Meaning, so learning more about domestic violence and the cycle of violence and things like that will assist a person into understanding DV, as well as being able to make that decision and have the support system built up to be able to make that move. Because that is another reason why people are afraid. They don't have a strong support system.
Mm-hmm.
So, or one that's without the abuser, whereas they feel like if they say something, it'll get back or is that.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So developing a support system. So reaching out to outreach services would be that call. And so they're located at 8811 South Stony Island. And again, in the DFSS offices that I had mentioned earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So that number for our main office is 773-375-1918. And then you just ask for outreach service.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for sharing that. So really, we're about done here. I want to give you an opportunity. If there's anything you haven't shared yet that you wanted to share, you're welcome to. Otherwise, I'll just ask maybe if you have something to say or some advice for, if we have a viewer at home who might be in a domestic violence situation, if there's anything that you would say to a person who's viewing this and kind of considering, what to do, just any kind of sentiment or advice or anything else that you would like to share.
Well, I just want to say that safety first. If you feel like you and your family are in jeopardy, and or you are under so much control that you feel hopeless, that there is help available. All you have to do is get somewhere safe and make a call, and we'll be on the other end to guide and assist you to safety. So I do want to say that this is Domestic Violence Month, and we share this month with breast cancer, but we are just as prevalent as breast cancer is. There is someone being killed. I don't have the statistics, but I know that someone has lost their life due to DV as we speak right now. So I need for you to understand that this is a serious situation, and no one never knows what the turnout may be, but it's never a good turnout if you do nothing. But there's always someone here to assist you. And Family Rescue is an agency that is ready to aid and assist as soon as we get that call. So that's about it.
Okay, great. Well, that is all of my questions that I have for you. I do want to say thank you so much for joining us today. I felt like this conversation was really, really important. So I appreciate you sharing so much great information, and, hopefully it'll be just as impactful to our viewers as it was for me.
Thank you for having me.
So I am going to let you go, and then I will, if I can figure out how, say goodbye to everybody, and we are going to be done for the day. So thank you again, Gladys.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. And, I look forward to continuing to work with you. I know your services are very valuable to the population that we serve as well. So I'm thankful to have you as one of our partners.
Okay. Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Let's see if we can get her out of here. Okay. So I don't have much else to say after that. I'm so thankful that we were able to have Gladys join us today. It is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. As always, share this video, and especially share this one, because this is just really valuable information. You never know what people are going through in their private lives. And, somebody may see this and be the push that they needed to make a change in their life, or notice a warning sign, you know, you just never know. And these domestic violence, instances of domestic violence are much more common, I think, than we'd like to believe. So, like I said, you know, thank you. Thank you to all of our viewers. Thank you to Gladys for joining us. And yeah, so this is Hope Talks. I'm Catherine. We're done for today, but I will be back next month. I don't have the date offhand, but it'll be, you know, as always, the third Monday of the month in November. I will soon be announcing the topic and the guest. So keep an eye out for that. Hopefully that'll come next week. And everybody have a great day and a great week. Thank you so much.